Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to the Sunday recap, my weekly vlog where I talk a little bit about my last week in games, and for this last week mostly EVE Online, and actually in my opinion a pretty good week in EVE Online because lots of stuff is happening, and I got the opportunity to take part in all of it, such as the mass test. Now we also have the patch with the two races that are starting centered around faction warfare, the Galente and the Caldari trying to build up their stargates, and then the Amar and Minmatar fighting over information in order to get the transmuter under their control and earn new technology that way. So it is pretty interesting. I haven't taken part in it directly just yet, but I am scoping out opportunities for a solo player like myself when it comes to these races, specifically the Galente Caldari one that is being massively dominated by Caldari, but we'll see what we can do, and maybe there's also some market opportunities there. One thing that I did first of all was the blueprint copies. So I split things up in basically the Freighter plus Orca run and then the Dreadnought run. At the moment could switch to carriers if that's not going so well, but it was another run for Freighters and Orcas, completely sold out on the previous one. And the reason I'm doing it that way now is because those blueprints are basically on an 8-day cooldown, and then the Dreadnoughts are like an 11-day cooldown. So went with another batch of Freighters and Orcas, and those BPCs are selling very quickly for very high prices. I'm not fully sure what's going on there, but two of the Freighters selling for 30 million, the other two for 20 million, and even the Orca went up from 3 to 5 million as the lowest price that I could find in contract. So is it that there's really a lot of demand or that there's not that much supply anymore out there? I'm not sure, but I'm definitely printing a lot of ISK, and I'm in fact thinking about expanding the BPC business through one of the other characters on my account, maybe some structures, some other stuff. It could definitely be pretty interesting, and there is an opportunity there at the moment. Basically everything is selling in a matter of days except for two Dreadnought BPCs that are still stuck, but I think we'll make it all work. So overall that's going really well, and that passive income is pretty cool to see. When it comes to the day-to-day gameplay, I did play the game a little bit every day. I think most of the week was killing spree, so that's always pretty easy. I jump in my Ishtar, do a little bit of exploration, clean up a couple of anomalies, and we've got our skill points. But I also decided to do a little bit of mining actually back in the Orca, so it's definitely not the optimal way of mining, but a pretty passive way of mining. I decided to do that because I also wanted to have the opportunity to do a little bit of stuff on the other monitor, while I do always keep an eye on local, and if there are forward operating bases in the system, I don't want to risk my Orca that way, but overall, yeah, got a little bit of mining done, and I think I might get the compression stuff going on my Orca at some point, but for now, it was just some small batches of ore that I brought back home. But it was pretty cool getting back out there in what was actually my very first activity in EVE Online, a little bit of mining. Back then it was the Hulk though, that was completely unbeatable. Now I like a little bit more HP and a more passive way of doing things, even if it means less yield, and that is for me the Orca. Still absolutely love that ship. Then another thing that I did was of course take part in the mass test. You may have seen the recording of it. If you haven't, you can take a look at that. This mass test for September focused again around the audio changes that CCP wants to do. So they want to improve things, especially in large battles when there's a lot of stuff happening. The audio does tend to become either completely overwhelming or even crackling up because there's just too much for the or that the client is trying to render. Now on this mass test it still wasn't perfect. I think they still need to tweak things a little bit, but the problems were towards not enough sounds, which is actually not a bad thing when you're looking at fixing something that really starts to become super annoying. And I think in big battles most players actually just turn off their audio because it's not doable. It did have I think quite a promising mass test there, so overall pretty good. And what was impressive as well, more than 250 people joined for this mass test. That's actually quite a lot. There was definitely a little bit of interest for this one. Everything went quite smoothly, no crash or anything like that, just yeah, a little bit of tweaking on how the audio decides what to render, I think, and then we'll be good to go. And then, of course, on Thursday, that patch hit for the 2 new races. I missed the live stream, had to work, but it's definitely pretty interesting. We've got Calente and Caldari trying to build those stargates, completely dominated by the Caldari, but we'll see what we can do. Maybe I can help out in some way as a solo player. Maybe I can risk some stuff, take a look at it. But I also don't feel that much pressure to take part in it directly. There's definitely market opportunities and things like that centered around those races as well. And then for Mar and Minmatar, it's mostly around getting data, so data exploration, which is very cool, of course, for the new ships, those new faction frigates. We've seen that their availability is not that great just yet, but all of that is in full evolution, and hopefully CCP can keep up a little bit of momentum towards the expansion in November, because it's again by chance, not because by design, but I have a week off when the expansion hits, so hopefully I can get some stuff done there as well. So yeah, I would say a week that was fully focused on EVE Online, although I did play a little bit of Path of Exile and a little bit of Civilization 6 as well. I basically came to the conclusion that for Path of Exile, the league has ended for me. I just don't have the motivation to put in any serious time or grinds anymore, so I'll look forward to what comes next in Path of Exile at the next league, and for now I'm looking at EVE Online and maybe something else to play. But yeah, pretty good time for me, and definitely an interesting week in EVE Online. And there you go, guys, that was my last week in games. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.